Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome one, welcome all. I'm your host, Brady Tickle, and today, to coincide with the release of both Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children and The Girl on the Train, we're going to be talking about some successful versus some not-so-successful book-to-movie adaptations, taking a look at the factors that separate the two along the way. First, let's talk about some not-so-good adaptations. Full disclosure, I have never watched one film in the Divergent series because, I actually value my time. To be honest, I don't have to watch any of these movies to get a sense of what they are. The trailers alone convey that this is the same garbage we've seen several times before, namely, a bunch of angsty teenagers facing obstacles and romancing each other in a depressing, post-apocalyptic world. I wonder where we've seen that done better before. In fact, the Divergent series is so bad, the final film in the franchise isn't even going to be released in theaters, but rather it's being released as a TV movie. Talk about going out with a whimper. The point here is this: if you're going to adapt a book into a motion picture, make sure the idea has not been done 1,000 times before. Pick a book that's fresh. Another terrible adaptation is the 2010 version of Gullivers Travels starring Jack Black. Personally, I love Jack Black. I think he's one of this generation's best comedic talents, showcasing his skills both in film and in his hilarious band Tenacious D. However, this adaptation of the classic book by Jonathan Swift is a big no. The main reason this film doesn't work is because it takes Swift's timeless classic, which worked as both a fantastical story for children and a thought-inducing satire of the government and society for adults, and dumbs it down and sets it in the modern day. While it could have worked as a satire of our modern culture, the film instead decides to take the low road and use the brilliant settings for jokes of the scatological variety. As soon as I saw Jack Black urinating on a burning building to save the Lilliputians, I knew this was going to be a bad flick. If you have intelligent source material, don't dumb it down. One last bad one, then we'll get to the good ones. The Cat in the Hat movie starring Mike Myers is one of the worst movies ever made. I'm not exaggerating. It's awful. I think Mike Myers is hilarious. Wayne's World and Austin Powers hold a special place in my heart, but how did this script get greenlit? Seriously, why would you take a children's book by Dr. Seuss and twist it into a disgusting movie filled with sexual innuendos, bad CGI, scary makeup, and an overstuffed plot? If you can't make a live-action movie of a beloved children's story without diminishing the legacy of that children's story, don't even bother making the movie. Some more quick dishonorable mentions that I'm not going to go into too much detail over include Eragon, because that book screamed epic fantasy franchise, and they ruined it with the very first movie. The Percy Jackson series, because that first movie was just painful to watch, and Horns, because although Daniel Radcliffe was a perfect egg Parish, even his performance couldn't save this devastatingly boring adaptation of Joe Hill's original page-turning novel. Speaking of Daniel Radcliffe, he's also starred in one of the very best book-to-film adaptations out there, the Harry Potter series. Sure, it occasionally leaves out some great scenes from J.K. Rowling's novels, but for the most part, these movies remain faithful to their source material. What makes these movies particularly good is how much they make you care about the main characters. This is one of the few franchises out there where you get to see the characters grow from innocent children to world-weary, but still optimistic adults. Heck, a lot of us grew up with Harry, Ron, and Hermione, making it even more special by the time the final credits rolled. It genuinely felt as if we were saying goodbye to a group of great friends. Another movie that makes us care about the main characters in this way is the Lord of the Rings series. While Peter Jackson's take on Tolkien's classic works is a bit more violent than the original source material, the characters are lovingly rendered to the point where we care about each and every one of them, hoping that they can get that ring destroyed and return home, enthralling us for 9 solid hours of entertainment. The Road, starring Viggo Mortensen, is also a fantastic adaptation of Cormac McCarthy's 2006 Pulitzer Prize-winning novel of the same name. At first, when I heard there was a movie adaptation of a somewhat slow book that was mainly about a father and son walking through a post-apocalyptic wasteland and looking for food, I was a bit skeptical. What works as a heavily thematic novel does not always translate to the big screen. Thankfully, what makes this adaptation stand out is in how it adds to the book in ways that make its source material even better. Unlike in the Hobbit franchise, where they just added stuff for the sake of making 3 movies and more money. For instance, there's a scene in the book in which the main characters are evading cannibals, hiding in a field. In the movie, the scene is changed so that they are evading the cannibals within an enclosed house, making it much more intense. The finale of the movie also makes some elements of the book's finale more clear and meaningful. Of course, I won't spoil how here, because you can check this movie out on Netflix. Some honorable mentions here include Jurassic Park, which was my childhood, Fight Club, which was perfectly realized by David Fincher's strong, fourth-wall-breaking direction, and The Shining, because Jack Nicholson and Stanley Kubrick are geniuses. So where does Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children fall in terms of being a good or bad adaptation? Well, it's somewhere in between. You can read my full thoughts in my written review on the Collegiate Times website. Thanks for watching.